It was a little over 8 years ago where a trade between the Montreal Canadiens and Nashville Predators would shock the entire hockey world. This trade would be PK Subban for Shea Weber. But let's revisit this trade, why it actually happened, and the effect on both teams. This is the PK Subban and Shea Weber trade revisited. In the 2015-2016 season, PK Subban was coming off an incredible season offensively, with him scoring a total of 51 points in 68 games and scoring 6 goals and 45 assists in the process. Even with this great campaign from Subban, the Canadiens were unfortunately unable to clinch the playoffs, as it would only finish with 38 wins. PK Subban in the summer of 2014 had signed a $72 million 8-year contract with the Montreal Canadiens, and PK Subban at the end of year 2 of his contract was being very productive. At this point of his contract, he had already scored more than 110 points in the span with the Montreal Canadiens and had contributed extensively to the Canadiens' playoff pushes in these years. So it was very interesting when the rumors were going around about how PK Subban was going to get traded from the Montreal Canadiens. However, in a relatively small offseason for the Canadiens, it was breaking news on June 29, 2016, where the entire hockey world stood still, where longtime Montreal Canadian PK Subban was traded to the Nashville Predators for longtime Predator Shea Weber. This news had shocked everyone, and needless to say, nobody really liked this trade. The reactions on Twitter when this was announced were not great, and I'm just showing the tame comments here. Subban's cap hit at the time when he had signed the contract with the Canadiens was a $9 million cap hit, so it was a pretty tremendous hit, but it didn't seem like the Canadiens needed to sign anybody. Pacioretty was locked down for at least another 2 years by this point, and Carey Price was already signed, but even though these players were signed, the Montreal Canadiens were way over the cap, as they didn't have much of any cap space at all. So trading Subban kinda made sense, getting Weber cleared out a couple million, but I feel like it's unlikely that there was no other way to free cap space, but maybe I'm wrong. This story had to go deeper, and in 2023 some news would come out about the truth of PK Subban's trading to the Nashville Predators. Subban was a guest on the Pivot podcast, and he made some interesting remarks that definitely got some attention of many fans. He stated that he considers himself lucky to have been drafted by a team like the Montreal Canadiens, and he had stated that it came with its own set of challenges. He says, and quote, "The tradition with Montreal is that no matter which star players had big names or got bigger than the team, they would trade them." He stated that he fell victim to the same fate of some of the other former stars who had came before him, and that's ultimately what led to his trade. He also said, and quote, "What happened to me is nothing special in terms of history. Definitely, when my career started, I started my own brand. This was a big deal because they were paying me to be a member of the Montreal Canadiens, but I was telling them, okay, so let's work on a way to their brands can coexist," end quote. Now, I'm assuming the brand that Subban is referring to was the fact that he saw himself as maybe sort of becoming the face of the franchise. It's either that or the fact that Subban wore the sports brand called Starter, and something happened with that. I mean, if you want my honest opinion, I don't really know what Subban is referring to when he's talking about his brand, but those are my best guesses. Subban, to elaborate, states his name and his brand were taking up too much space within the organization, so his trade would have, in a way, refocused the attention on the Montreal Canadiens instead of Subban. It's elaborated in this specific article, which I'll link in the description, that he does not mean any of this in a negative way, and that Subban was always the first to praise the culture and history of the Montreal Canadiens, but this definitely is interesting. He finishes by stating, and quote, "They have a very rich history of success, with 24 Stanley Cups, so they believe in their own methods." It does definitely shed some more light on an otherwise ambiguous trade, and it does make me wonder if Subban's relationship with the Canadiens was really good or not in the end. On the other side of things, the Nashville Predators also had their own reasons for trading Shea Weber, and it's also pretty interesting. Weber at the time was locked into a 14-year, $110 million contract that consisted of $7.86 million a year. Yeah, 14 years. This was signed back in 2012, so this was back when signing these contracts was slightly more common. Even though trading for Subban wouldn't exactly help their cap situation, it had a lot of fewer long-term risks, so Nashville took the risk of trading Weber for Subban. It also could have been done to bring a change of scenery into the Nashville locker room, and many fans really weren't happy about the trade. But the first year with their respective teams have not gone bad at all. PK Subban and the Predators not only managed to clinch the playoffs with 41 wins, they had managed to make it all the way to the Stanley Cup final, where they would eventually lose to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Subban in the regular season had managed to notch himself 10 goals and 30 assists for 40 points in 66 games, and managed to notch 12 points in 22 playoff games in the playoffs. With the Montreal Canadiens, it was a different story. The Canadiens would have an amazing start to the season, going 13-1-1 to start the season, and although doing a little worse throughout the season, they were able to have a strong finish and get 47 wins to clinch a playoff spot, but they would end up getting bested in the first round by the New York Rangers, where they would lose in 6 games. Shea Weber in the regular season managed to get himself 17 goals and 25 assists for 42 points in 78 games, and would be 5th on scoring for the Montreal Canadiens. In the playoffs, he would have 3 points in 6 games against the New York Rangers, and the lack of offense from Montreal would be their downfall. In the following year, Shea Weber for the Canadiens had sustained a toe injury after blocking a shot in the first game of the season. Weber would try to keep playing with this injury, but it eventually sidelined him for the rest of the season. Because of this injury, Weber ended up having to get knee surgery, which would keep him out for a really long while, pretty much into the 2018-19 season. Weber in the 2017-28 season had 16 points in 26 games, but with the injury, the Canadiens weren't able to get back to form and they missed the playoffs. However, with Weber getting injured and the Canadiens missing the playoffs, the Predators were only getting better, as in the 2017-2018 season, Predators would have a 53-win season, with not only having the second best defense in the league, but also winning the President's Trophy on top of that. The Predators would, however, get defeated by the Winnipeg Jets in a 7-game series in the second round, but Subban wasn't slowing down at all, as in the regular season, the dude was 3rd on scoring with the Predators, as he would pick up 16 goals and 43 assists for 59 points in 82 games, and was one of the crucial reasons why the Predators were so good in the first place. As a result, Subban would be a Norris finalist, but wouldn't win it this season, as Brent Burns had an absolute amazing season to win it. Subban would still go on to have 9 points in the playoffs to cap off a really nice season. However, in the following seasons, both Weber and Subban have had a noticeable decline. However, Weber's made more sense, as he was getting older. But Subban's decline was strange, as he was still young, and it seemed like he was going into his prime. But Subban had a noticeable decline in his play, going from having a 31-point season in the 2018-2019 season to then being traded to the New Jersey Devils and having an even worse season, where you'd have 18 points in 68 games. Subban would play for a couple more years, but would then go on to retire after the 21-22 season as a result of a lack of contracts. However, even though Shea Weber had declined, he was still leading the Montreal Canadiens well, and in the 2021 season, he would lead the Anomaly Canadiens all the way to the Stanley Cup Final, where they would lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning. It seems the Predators had won this trade in the short term, but the Canadiens seem to have won in the long term. But hey, I mean really, since no one won a cup, I guess nobody won the trade. But hey, give me your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who do you think really won this Shea Weber PK Subban trade? Do you think it was the Montreal Canadiens, who ended up winning in the long term and actually advancing to the Stanley Cup Final in 2020 to 2021? Or do you think it was the Nashville Predators, who had a prime PK Subban and were able to make a run all the way to the Stanley Cup Final in 2017? Give me your thoughts down below in the comment section, and hey, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.